Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another weekly wrap-up. My name is Jeremy Cronemeyer. I'm Operations Manager for Wickham Financial Group, and I have Graham Wickham here, President and CEO of Wickham Financial and Insurance Services. Graham, what happened to the markets last week?
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. And again, thanks for our listeners jumping on the call. We had some pretty soft inflation data roll out last week. On top of that, we had strong bank earnings, and that lifted the equity markets. So we saw the S&P 500, the Nasdaq Composite, both up about 2.5% to 3%. The Russell 2000 small cap, that jumped about 4%. We did see all 11 of the S&P 500 sectors positive, and that was led by about a 6% jump in financials. Energy, basic materials, all rallied quite a bit. Technology gain, now that was muted a bit by some new export rules on some AI chips to China. Crude oil, that traded above 80 and then pulled back after Israel announced and Hamas announced their ceasefire. U.S. Treasury yields, that tumbled a good bit after core CPI fell for the first time in 6 months. So on the inflation consumer sentiment side, we saw the headline CPI did tick up about 2.9% year over year from about 2.7%. From other economic indicators, you saw U.S. retail sales up about 0.4% last month. Atlanta Fed did come out with their fourth quarter 2024 GDP estimates. They're expecting that to be just above 3%. Manufacturing activity in the U.S. Mid-Atlantic region saw a pretty good pop. Small business and home builder sentiment, now that improved. Might have been on some good or lowering yields. In that standpoint, good, I guess, if they're lowering. So we did see some good housing starts. Some permits did jump a bit with those guys. Internationally, going overseas, we saw Japan's fourth quarter GDP. That met about the 5% growth target. Industrial output was up about 5.8% year over year. Retail sales up about 3.5%. China trade surplus, now that reached nearly $1 trillion in 2024. UK retail sales fell about a third, 0.3% month over month in December, even though we saw their inflation come in at about 2.5%. Their gross domestic or GDP forecast, that came in pretty flat for fourth quarter. Unfortunately for Germany, their economy shrank for the second straight year in 2024. And Australia, they had some pretty good employment report. But it didn't eliminate any hopes of seeing some rate cuts next month. Now, this week, what are we expecting? Well, we've got the holiday and we got the new administration coming on board, and all eyes are going to be what's going to be passed and how quick, what changes are going to go effect with the new administration. Economic data, it's pretty light from that standpoint. We'll be seeing some global flash PMI numbers. Some U.S. corporate earnings are going to continue to pick up steam this week. Bank of Japan, their interest rate decision. And then we'll be looking at some, on the U.S. side, we'll be looking at some existing home sales, some consumer sentiment figures maybe being revised. But I think it's really going to get into the heart of earnings. Outside of the new administration decisions on policy, we're going to see Netflix, American Express, Texas Instrument, Procter & Gamble, so on and so forth. Really, these earnings are coming out and picking up steam here for the next couple of weeks. Global PMI data, we'll be looking at the U.S. growth outpacing other developed countries. And then we do see the World Economic Conference over in Davos, Switzerland. They're going to be looking at some geopolitical events, topics that they'll be discussing, trade tensions, economic fragmentation, some artificial intelligence. I think that's always high on the list. Anytime you're going to get these conferences. Over in Japan, we'll be looking at some hints on what direction their next steps will be with interest rates. And then over in Canada and UK, we'll be looking at some job data, some CPI numbers out of Canada. Jeremy?
Thank you, Graham. Thank you for all of the information and expertise. And thank you to our listeners that come on here with us every single week. And we do have our retirement planning today classes starting next Tuesday, January 28th. And then the Saturday classes start on February 1st. So if you or you're a friend, a family member, a neighbor that might would want to come to that, they can call us here at the office or they can check out our website. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Take care.